Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, the TK Pod. Tim, thanks so much for doing it. How you doing this afternoon?
Doing pretty good, Mark. How you doing today?
Man, everything is awesome. I want to ask you this. The fact that Brandon Allen is getting pretty much equal reps with Trey and Sam to you means what?
They're taking a look at him. There's a mathematical reason for this, right? On days when Purdy doesn't practice, which is going to be one of every three, they're going to split those up, much more towards Lance and Darnold. But on the days he does practice, they're going to have Brandon Allen stick with the third team. He's going to get reps. I think they really want to take a look at Allen, or they want us seeing that they're taking a look at Allen, and they want us to report that out to everyone else who might be looking at a quarterback at some point and wants to see if they can add a quarterback from the 49ers, four of them. I don't know. I think it's a play. I think it's they give themselves a lot of options at quarterback. Let's see if Purdy can make it through a training camp. I think he's been looking fine through the practices he's done so far, but you never know. Let's see if Lance, he has been hurt a couple times already. We'll see if Darnold can hold up. I think they're just leaving it all out there for options, but they're certainly not making Brandon Allen be an afterthought. Like he's not just getting those, the third string snaps that Purdy got, let's say, last year, which was not a lot. You just don't see the third string quarterback get that many, or the fourth string quarterback get that many. They want it. No, they want him. They want to see him. They want to see what he can do. And I imagine he's going to play a lot in the preseason. They're just going to take a look at all these guys, and if them taking a look at Brandon Allen gives them the option of maybe trading one of the three who are not named Brock Purdy, and that all the better for them. They're just kind of looking around. It's never bad to have too many good quarterbacks. We'll see how good they all are. But Kyle kind of does this. Like, he can remember he wasn't going to say give it up on what they were going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo last year when we all thought he was going to be cut eventually if they couldn't trade him. Well, guess what? Kyle being a little vague about it helped them because it allowed them to come back and say, you know what, we are signing Jimmy Garoppolo. He is coming back. When nobody expected that to happen. They're just keeping their options open. They kind of do that. I know it kind of confuses people, and it does sometimes confuse me. But if you really play it out, it's just Kyle Shanahan saying, I got four guys. I'm not going to give up on any of them. We're going to see we'll play it out with all four.
And we still have 4.5 weeks till cutdown day, so it does them really no disadvantage, no disservice to keep all four at this point. But does it feel to you, Tim, like it's a little bit of an anti-Trey Lance move or a hedge against the fact that maybe Trey Lance is not the quarterback that they thought that he was going to be when they drafted him number 3 overall?
Well, you got to throw that out. You got to. I know it's hard for people. That was 2 years ago. You can't base things on what you thought 2 years ago. You can't base things even on what you gave up for him. That was 2 years ago. If you think you've got a better starter than him, which they do with Brock Purdy, then he gets into the mix with 2, 3, 4. And once he's in the mix with 2, 3, 4, it's an even contest. You just see what he can do. He's not a franchise quarterback or hasn't been through 2+ seasons. That's true. That doesn't matter at this point. You're playing your best. You're going to keep your best 3 in your mind, probably. Although Kyle's saying they could keep 4, I don't think they're going to. They're just way further down that road than I think they'll ever go. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that would clue you in on that they're not so sure about Trey Lance. They signed Sam Darnold. If they were sure they could go with Purdy, if he's hurt, they go with Lance. If they were absolutely positive about Lance being able to step in, if Purdy couldn't go the first few weeks, they probably wouldn't have signed somebody as high profile as Darnold. They would have, you could have gone with Brandon Allen as your other quarterback. They went with both of them because they weren't sure about Lance. I think Lance can be fine even this season, but maybe not, in their minds at this point has proven he can win games. So that's why they throw the whole mix in there. This is not about 2 years ago. That's gone. You can't go back in time and reevaluate that. That happened. The picks are never coming back. They're judging it based on what they got, what they see on the field. And yeah, you can just say if you bring Sam Darnold and you say he's competing straight up with Trey Lance, one of them is in jeopardy of not being on his roster. Theoretically, I don't know how that would happen. I'm not sure how they think it would happen, but it's a competition, pure and simple. It's a competition for jobs. At some point, there will be a winner to that. But as you said, there's plenty of time for them to decide this, and then figure out if one of them's got to go, how they're going to do that. I don't know at this point.
Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, with us here. Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. TK, it is that they signed Sam Darnold and did it quickly, but it's not just that. It's also the way Kyle has gushed about him. And I know you spoke to him at length just recently, and so I wonder, like, do you get the impression that Kyle really he wants Sam to be the backup quarterback?
Nah, you know what? I guess you can read into a lot of things. I didn't happen to talk to him about Darnold that much. He was kind of more going Brandon Allen than me, so maybe he kind of, rotates it through here a little bit sometimes with the rhetoric. I think he's open to Darnold being a really good reclamation project. We know these guys kind of get pride out of, I got this guy who was screwed up over here, and I approve what he can do. And I think there might be some of that. Someone might be saying the same thing about him and Trey Lance. Like, we're going to get Trey Lance from him, and we'll do it right. Who knows? I just think he's open to it. Again, it can get tricky, it can get complicated. He keeps his options open. Remember back when they drafted Trey Lance, and it was Trey versus Jimmy in training camp. I don't think he ever really said that Jimmy was the starter, yet it was clear Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be the starter. They were taking a look at Lance, but Garoppolo was going to be the starter that year. He just is coy about this stuff. He kind of likes all four quarterbacks. He really likes Brock Purdy. The other three, he has, differing levels of enthusiasm over. He's not down on any of them. So it's going to sound like he could pick any one of them to be 2-3, and it's going to be sorted out in the way they play. I just think snaps, repetitions, that's the real thing. Let's see how they dole those out. I'd say right now that Lance has been slightly getting a little more advanced snaps than Darnold. It's very close. Kyle gets a little annoyed sometimes when I ask him the specifics about who's getting what snaps and what order. But I think it does matter. Just like Lance usually takes the first run of those snaps. Whatever, if he and Darnold are ones, it's usually Lance first. If Lance and Darnold are running with the twos because Purdy's running the first team, it's usually Lance getting those first snaps. Again, that doesn't mean it's just kind of an interesting way to see it shape. And I just think they're open to whatever way it works. And, preseason snaps often are meaningless, and in many ways they are for this team, for, say, Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey and whoever else. But for this quarterback thing, I think they're going to play those three guys, Lance, Darnold, and Allen, a lot, and I think those snaps are going to mean a lot, too.
In terms of an end game, and assuming that they're not going to keep all four quarterbacks and that none of the three below Brock Purdy would slip through and be on the practice squad, what do you think would be the best value for Kyle Shanahan and the Niners in terms of trading either Allen or Darnold or Trey Lance?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe they would get much for Darnold, who was out on the open market and signed with 49ers for not too much, and Brandon Allen, who was certainly out on the open market, even though he was a backup on a really good team, the Cincinnati Bengals, was signed to be the fourth quarterback for the 49ers. Clearly was not a huge market for him. You got to believe Lance, being younger, 23, being someone that was, evaluated very highly when he was coming out of college. Again, I'm not saying value means anything 2 years down the road, but at some point, some coach might say, I really like that guy. I think I can do something with him. I got to believe it's Lance for the most trade value, but in the same way, he's got the most valuable to them. If Purdy goes down, and we know quarterback could go down, who do I think would be the best 49er quarterback for 4 or 5 games? I think it would be Trey Lance. I still do. And so with as much as they've got riding on this season, as we know that payroll is huge, we know these superstars are on this team, we know they're not getting any younger, I kind of like Trey Lance's insurance. And then, maybe Darnold is the excess guy, and maybe that turns, and he's the guy who beats out Trey Lance in camp. But I kind of would say, because Trey Lance is the guy who might get you the most, maybe a 4th-round pick, maybe a 5th-round pick, maybe a 4th and a 6th, I kind of would rather have him on this team if I'm the 49ers, because you might want him to go 3-1 in a 4-game span. You might want him to pull something out of his, on 3rd and 7 when, Purdy's out for 5 plays and he can manufacture something for you. That's really valuable for this team. When might be the difference between home field against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I'd keep him. That's what I mean. In my head, unless he's beat out cleanly by Darnold, because Lance is the most valuable around the league, because he has the most talent of that group, I'd keep Lance as the backup as really good insurance. And then you're talking next offseason, then you might really have to redo that quarterback room behind Purdy.
Yeah, and those are interesting comments right there. Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, with us. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Yeah, we spend so much time sort of like peeling the layers off of what we think Kyle thinks. I know it's been early, but you know, Tim, you're out there. Like, what do you think when you watch these guys all play? What is standing out with their abilities to you?
Well, Purdy's early. I wasn't there today. I was there yesterday for his first practice. You know, he's just getting back into it. He has not gone through a practice for a long time. Yesterday was his first one. Today was his second one. I think that's going to take a little bit of time. Looks okay with the arm strength. Maybe the rhythm might be a little off. Maybe some of the reads are a little off. Totally understandable. By 2 weeks from now, I expect that to be just fine. I think Lance and Darnold look very similar. Different skills, but maybe because Lance has been in the system longer, looks a little bit more assured with his reads, certainly more than he did last year in camp, which was a little shaky, as we all know. I think Darnold looks fine physically. Maybe there's a time or two if the pass doesn't look great. I think they both look like solid NFL backups to possibly back-end starters in this league. So I wouldn't give one a huge advantage over the other. I think I've seen Trey make a couple more plays than Darnold, but I saw today that he didn't look good today. I don't see where either one of them looks fantastic, and I don't see where either one of them looks terrible. I think it's going to be what the read was and stuff that we don't know about. Did they get out of the huddle the right way? Did they get out of a bad play at the right time? They go to the correct play. But I just think Lance is slightly more valuable. I give you that equation. 5 games, Purdy's out in the middle of the season. You need to go 3-2. You got to go 3-2 to make sure you're in there with the Eagles for home field in the NFC. I think I go with Lance. Just maybe he can make an extra play. He's not a speedster, Lamar Jackson runner, but he's talented at that, and maybe a little more refined and working within the system, certainly than he was last season. Plenty of time for that to flip. Plenty of that time for Sam Darnold to look a lot better. But in the early going, if you're asking me, of course, I'm the person who didn't see it from Purdy last camp at all. At all. I was not alone in that. So, there's things happening that we can't tell. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to Kyle about this week. Was what was that? I said, I didn't see it. But just from my eyeballs and looking at those team drills, when it's offense versus defense, I would lean towards Lance at this point, but that's just me kind of spitballing out there. I do think because he's got seniority on this team, not as in age, but on this team, he's got to be defeated clearly to give up that backup spot. Just in my opinion, doesn't mean that's Kyle Shanahan's opinion or anybody's opinion else on that team. In my opinion, because there's familiarity, because he's been around, because he's such a good guy, because he was such a big help to Purdy last season. All those things, I think he's got to be beat out clearly to lose that number 2 spot. And at this point, I don't see it happening. It still might happen over the next few weeks. Those Raiders practices, I think, would be really important for that in Las Vegas. You're going up against a different defense. You're going against, a whole different field. It almost feels like a game. Maybe that's where a move can make. That's kind of where Purdy made his big jump last year. But I haven't seen it yet. Wide open for a possibility, but I haven't seen that move yet.
Is it as much about what Kyle wants them to do as it is, the padded practices and the preseason games and the preseason numbers? Is that when you ask Kyle Shanahan that, will you be surprised to find out exactly what is the determining factor for him versus what all of us fans think that we see?
Yeah, when we saw it with Purdy last year, again, I don't think it was ridiculous that I didn't know that Purdy was impressing Kyle so much. Because it wasn't much. You threw that dump off really great, and yet that's exactly what he wanted to see. The other play wasn't there. I wanted to see him do this, and he did it exactly the way he should do. He didn't do anything stupid. He ran the team the way I wanted. The look that he got he read it, he felt it, and he delivered. You can't really see that if you're just standing there. A 1 5-yard pass looks like another 5-yard pass. So I am fully prepared for stuff to be decided based on things that I did not know and I did not see, even though, I'm going to be out there 15 times for camp. I do believe it's important to see it, but the quarterback spot's subtle. The quarterback spot is full of layers that we don't always know about. Purdy did it last year. Brandon Allen, to me, in OTAs, was just another guy. Kyle really liked it. We don't know what they're being told in the meetings and what he exactly wants them to do. But Purdy clearly was doing it in camp, and Kyle knew what the hell he was talking about, because then Purdy looked fantastic in the regular season when at full speed, people hitting him, him getting hit hard and getting back up and throwing a couple more completions. We'll have to see. But, yeah, I am fully prepared for, you know what? I thought Trey looked great. And then Kyle to come back 3 weeks later and say, I was really disappointed. We don't know, other than maybe talking to some of the players, getting a feel for that. I think there is some amount of, backing for Trey just because of the guy he's been, the things he's kind of gone through the first couple of years. Doesn't mean that's what's going to decide it. I just feel like there's a lean towards Trey. Does not mean it can't change, as I've said now 1,000 times.
Right.
But I'm ready for all kinds of crazy stuff to come up. Who knows? But I just feel like it will be. I think it'll have to be clearer than what we saw out of Purdy. Something will be clear in the preseason. Kyle's even said it. He thinks the preseason snaps are going to be pretty important. He didn't really say that last year. I think we will be able to see who's making plays in the preseason, and I think that will be relatively important.
TK, any worries about Bosa at all?
I don't think so, but we'll see. You never know. There's many weeks for that, right? I mean, he signed Tuesday of the first game, September, whatever, 3. I don't think that would be any big problem. He's going to stay in shape. He's a pass rusher. Go get the quarterback. I don't think they wanted to get that long, but I think that would be, it still wouldn't be terrible. I think we start getting 3 weeks in the camp. Maybe there will be some pressure on everybody. I don't think it's going to get that far, though. They know what the dollars are. A lot on the line. Any little percentage difference could mean a lot. $10 million, $15 million, and so you're not going to just blow that off. But I don't sense any worry in the 49ers. Certainly not sense that from Bosa's side. They just have to go through this. And more than anything, nobody's worried that, the 49ers will pay market rate. They will. Now, it's going to be determined what market rate is, the top of the market. So some dollars are going to be, it's going to be hammered out. Or 2, that Bosa would come in and out of shape or disgruntled, or there's just no sense of any of that. So talk to me again, end of August. That might sound differently, but right now, with so many weeks left to go, I think you start getting into the exhibition games. Maybe you start thinking, okay, this should be happening pretty soon. But they're even a couple weeks away from the exhibition games, so I don't think there's much worry on this side.
Hey, Tim, before you go, I wonder what you think the Giants' deadline is going to look like. And Hunter Pence was on our show earlier today, and he actually made the statement that he thinks even if they did nothing, they're still a World Series contender. Do you agree with that?
I don't really agree with that, but that's okay. I understand the conversation. They've got they got some depth. We'll see if they can manufacture another starting pitcher or 2 as they're built. They've played the good teams pretty good. That's one thing I'll go with them on that. They've kind of suffered against the bad teams. They don't want to face the Washington Nationals in the playoffs, I'll tell you that. But those Detroit Tigers in the World Series would be really difficult. But I think they could use, what we always say, they could use a guy who scares the other team offensively. Somebody they have to game plan around, somebody that they're changing pitchers in order because they don't want to face this guy coming up. Don't know who that is on the current lineup. It's probably nobody. They get you with the depth. They get you with the platoon advantages when they can get them. That's kind of when they gotten stuck with that with the guys being hurt. They mostly are the middle infielders. They've gotten some guys who, in real disadvantageous at-bats, Wisely, Schmidt, these are guys who you do not want facing certain pitchers at certain times, and they have not been avoid those. But I think they're good. I don't think they're great, but the fact that they play the good teams pretty good would indicate that they would be a threat in the playoffs, even as constructed. I do think they could use another starter. I think they could use another bat for sure. And I would think a right-handed bat, at least somebody can hit left-handed pitching. They're pretty, they're vulnerable against hard-throwing lefties. We saw that. Like, they have a hard time against that. And you're going to face one or two or three of them in the postseason if they get there. Or just to get to the postseason, I think they might need one more player. But I'll go with Pence on this. Like, again, I don't think they'd fear the Dodgers, and I don't think they'd fear a lot of teams. It's just like they can play with the big boys. It's just the consistency of it, the ability to keep kind of like throw bats out there every inning that are going to scare the opponent. That's how you kind of get through every postseason. I don't see them getting through 3 series with who they are, but I think it's like the Warriors maybe in the last postseason. I didn't see them winning the championship, but I saw them being a tough out. And I think the Giants, even if they don't get, let's say, another starting pitcher, Marcus Stroman, who is the guy I keep looking for, they're going to be a tough out, but I don't see them getting through 3 series, get the World Series.
Yep, I hear you. Hey, TK, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you doing it.
You got it, guys, anytime.